am Muriel Bowser. I'm the mayor of Washington, D.C., and I also have the privilege of chairing the U.S. Conference of Mayors Committee on International Diplomacy. And I am joined also by our Vice Chair, David Holt, who is the Mayor of Oklahoma City, who you will hear from shortly. We have an exciting program. We also have a number of people moving in and or moving out after their remarks. So we want to get started so that we can hear from everyone. It is my pleasure. I normally welcome the conference at the opening luncheon, but I was representing our city at the inauguration of the new governor for Maryland. So I'll use this time to welcome you all to Washington, D.C. I had the opportunity to share with the conference that when I became mayor in 2015, we made a specific effort to include the international community in the work of U.S. mayors. And as the mayor of Washington, D.C., our diplomatic corps here has just been outstanding in support of our city, and I knew that they would be outstanding in the support of yours. So since 2015, we have been hosting a welcome reception with an ambassador at their embassy to welcome America's mayors to their embassy. And I have just been very grateful for the support of our diplomatic corps. I want to start by recognizing two ambassadors who have joined us here today. And let me start with Mexico's ambassador to the U.S., Esteban Montezuma. Please, Ambassador, thank you for your attendance today, and we want to welcome you. I also want to welcome the British ambassador to the United States, Dame Karen Elizabeth Pierce, also a great friend to Washington, D.C. and our nation. Thank you, Ambassador, for your presence here today. And so we were recently at the reception, the welcome reception for D.C. that was hosted by the ambassador from the United Arab Emirates, where we heard about their investment in American cities, and continued partnership and possible cultural exchanges and economic exchanges between our nations and our capital cities. So with that, we have a robust agenda before us. We're going to hear from our vice chair, and our first special guest will be Ambassador Nina Hashigian. And Ambassador Hashigian is filling a vital role that has been long advocated by the United States Conference of Mayors. She brought the Secretary of State, Secretary Blinken, to see us, the first Secretary of State to speak to our conference about how we could work together. So with that, let me turn to David for brief remarks, and then we will hear from the ambassador.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And yeah, if there is a theme to this particular D.C. meeting, it's definitely international relations. We began at the UAE Embassy. We received our first visit from the Secretary of State. We've got brilliant ambassadors here today. Some of us even had lunch with the ambassador of Jordan. My theory is that the world is simply looking for a more functional level of government here in the United States, and they are finding it at cities, and I think that engagement will continue to grow in the years ahead. And if I might say something on a somewhat personal level relative to my city, I'm ambassador from Mexico. We are thrilled to be opening a new consulate, I should say. It feels like it's ours. It's your government's consulate, but we're that excited about it. And that is a major achievement that we're celebrating in Oklahoma City. So we'll hope you'll be able to visit someday. But thank you all for being here. Thank you, Madam Chair, for a moment, and I look forward to hearing from our speakers.
Thank you, Mayor. And let me get to our lineup. Again, we're going to hear also from our fellow Mayor Michael Hancock. We will hear also from Mayor County, followed by the Lord Mayor of Nuremberg, Germany. Just a reminder that this is an open press event, and we want to jump in to our discussion. So with that, Ambassador Hashikian. Let me get it right. Okay, Hashikian.
Thank you so much. I am just thrilled to be here. Mayors are really my kind of people. You are just always getting the job done. And, I spent 5 years until this past fall working for a great mayor. So I know how terribly difficult your jobs are, the miracles you're frequently asked to perform, and that they're often thankless. So let me start by just saying thank you to all the mayors for all that you do, for all the people in the United States and elsewhere. And I will add a personal thanks too, because I do owe my job to your tenacity for lobbying to create this position. And I want to thank Mayor Bowser for the introduction, Mayor Holt, as well as Tom, Lena, and the whole USCM team for building this opportunity with this incredible panel of trailblazers and audience, including my friends, the two ambassadors. So I want to give you an update on the first 3 months of the job. And I have to apologize in advance for having to run and catch my flight. I did try to change it, didn't work. But so I will speak and then take a couple questions, and then I really got to go. So much as I'm grateful to you for creating this job, I was a little sad to leave city government. Mayor Garcetti really took a chance on me when he created a position of Deputy Mayor for International Affairs and an office in 2017. But I think that we did prove over time that we could really deliver benefits for Angelinos, like starting a free travel program for community college students, welcoming trade delegations, and going on trade missions and creating jobs, creating a vehicle for foreign direct investment, hosting a big summit with all the business that brings, and lots of constituent and diaspora engagement as well. But a mayor's basic role is to bring better lives to your people, whether it's fixing roads or keeping them safe or making sure they have good jobs, celebrating with them. And here in 2023, as this group knows well, I think that much of that work is really connected to the rest of the globe. And my small but mighty new team and I, and some of them are here. We've got Danny and Natalia and Irina are in the room. We are committed both to helping you deliver to your constituents and to encouraging you to lead on the global stage. So we have 3 broad goals. And let me just say this is all a work in progress. We're just starting, so any feedback you have about turning in a different direction, we can still do. But I'll tell you our thinking so far. So the first goal is to help bring the tangible benefits of U.S. foreign policy to the local level. And so jobs would be an example of that. As you know, like 75% of the world's purchasing power is not in the United States, and 95% of world consumers are outside the United States. So though we are the world's largest economy, and some of your cities have economies larger than those of some countries, it's still true that lots and lots of commerce lies beyond our shores. So we want to help connect you with trade and investment opportunities, and are exploring all the ways that we can support you. We do have economic officers in nearly every country of the world willing to assist your communities to expand export and investment opportunities overseas. And at the upcoming City Summit of the Americas, which Mayor Hancock will tell you more about, we will have a chance for businesses to engage with mayors from all over the hemisphere. Let me draw a connection that some mayors have pointed out to me, that if you work on cultivating foreign as well as domestic businesses, you are growing your tax base, and that will allow you to do a better job of all the pothole filling, community support, and all those things that your constituents expect you to do. And not to mention that engaging with mayors overseas can give you some ideas on new ways to solve your city's problems. Around the world, I've noticed mayors are often solving the same sorts of challenges. Another benefit we can offer is opportunities for your young people to get the global skills that they will need to get the good jobs in a more competitive world. The State Department has a slew of exchange programs that we would love you to know about. We've already tried to make some of them known to you, and we would love you to get the word out about them, especially to your underserved communities, to students who might not know about them. There are some newer opportunities like the Gilman program, which sponsors students of limited financial means to study and intern abroad. And if you want to get on our mailing list, just email subnational@state.gov. But all the exchange programs are also listed on the State Department website at exchanges.state.gov. But we want all your young people representing the United States overseas. The second goal of the team is to help you engage around the world. Many of you are already doing that. You are meeting with your diasporas about issues that their countries of origin may be facing. You are leading trade missions, signing declarations, sharing ideas, welcoming tourists and students and family from overseas, as well as refugees. You are helping as well to solve global problems that affect your communities, like climate change. As the Secretary said yesterday, your work and your commitment to transition to a low carbon footprint not only helps you and your residents in the form of lower air pollution and green jobs, but it also helps us. Because when we as the United States are meeting our commitments to lower our carbon, then our State Department negotiators have an easier time convincing everybody else to lower their emissions. And that means, in turn, that your people will face less extreme weather events down the road. So I feel like a lot of these challenges, mayors and the State Department are working on them they're just two sides of the same coin, and we're working at them from different angles. It's similar with addressing COVID. So we are the first, you mayors are the first responders, and at state we're negotiating a global pandemic accord to make us better prepared to coordinate and stop the spread in the future. That team, by the way, that's negotiating the accord would love to hear from mayors about their experiences during COVID. So if you're willing to relive them, please let us know, and we would like to connect you with that team. And it's true, again, of your efforts to prevent critical infrastructure from cyber attacks, and we at the State Department have a cyber department and are working on the rules of the road. So very, different angles, same challenges. So the third goal that we have is to encourage the State Department generally to think more about local officials, because sometimes they are the ones who can actually get things done that we'd like to get done. So we are beating the drum about that in the State Department as well. Despite the international work that some of you do, we know that compared to some of your counterparts, you don't have the same kind of capacity in terms of staff to engage globally. Many counterparts overseas have significant staff that do just international work. And we have that front of mind. We're thinking about it. We're not sure how to solve it yet, but we are thinking about it, and we will keep you informed. We will have opportunities coming up again at the City Summit in Denver, City Summit of the Americas. We're going to be rolling out something called the Cities Forward Initiative, which will match U.S. cities with cities in the rest of the hemisphere to share knowledge on sustainability initiatives, and more programs to help capacity will be coming forward. There are some kinds of international action that actually take very little effort but can mean a lot. The Secretary mentioned yesterday the Mayor's Declaration on Democracy. It takes less than 5 minutes to sign that, but we want hundreds of mayors to join it. It's it had nothing to do with writing it, but I think it's a very beautiful statement about the importance of democracy. And mayors signing it shows that democracy really starts at the local level, at the level closest to the people, when government shows that it can deliver. So if you'd like to sign it, we would love that. And you can find it on the German Marshall Fund website, or just let us know and we'll connect you. And we would love a large group of mayors to sign, and we will then try to build an event around that at the Summit for Democracy, the one that's for heads of state at the end of March. So as we look for more concrete support, what we can do now is offer you advice and guidance and expertise if you want it. The State Department is full of amazing, talented experts on every issue, on every part of the world. And so if that's ever helpful to you with a delegation that's coming in or a trip that you're planning or whatnot, just please let us know. And in general, if you want to give us a heads up before you travel overseas, that's helpful as well. We can ask the embassy and country to brief you, those are always really useful briefings. And if you have a bit of time to spare, I'm sure they would love you to talk to a local group. But I do understand well the capacity issue, having served in Mayor Garcetti's office. I also want to say, though, that it's very helpful to us, to the United States, when you're representing us overseas in your own capacities, and when you're carrying American values with you and to other parts of the globe. That's all to the good. So the reason you lobbied for this position and the reason I decided to take it is because we believe that cities do well when they engage internationally, and America as a country does well when its cities are out there in the global arena representing us. You'll hear more from Mayor Hancock, but I do hope to see all of you at the City Summit for the Americas. It's going to also make history, like the Secretary coming yesterday. It's the first time the State Department, as far as we know, has tried to do something like this. Yeah. But it'll be a great way to engage internationally without having to leave the United States and develop closer connections with mayors across the hemisphere. And I'll conclude there. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you, Ambassador. So we've also been joined by our President, Tom Cochran. Tom, thank you and congratulations on the conference's success and the appointment of the ambassador to fill this very special role.
We lobbied hard for this position, as you know, to have a State Department that has a place for mayors and cities, and so we're so happy to have you here, Madam Ambassador. We look forward to working with you.
Thanks, Tom. And as you were talking, Ambassador, I was thinking amongst the mayors, we don't have a first deputy mayor for international policy. We do have a person, and our organization is called the Secretary of State, or the Secretary of the District, fills a lot of these functions. But then also in our Economic Development Office, we fill the rest of the functions. So I just kind of wanted to take a scan of the mayors, of the people in your organizations who are doing this work. Anyone offer? It's you, Mayor? Okay, so most people, I think it's the mayor who is kind of taking the lead on how he or she wants to reach out to the world, and then ad hoc appointing members of staff to work on those issues. Okay,
Which is why
Paris has probably 100 people that work on international.
right.
Yeah, Tokyo has 50.
That's right.
Warsaw has 25. Like I whenever I'm meeting foreign mayors, I ask them, and so it's different, and that's why capacity is front of mind for us, and we're trying to figure out what we can do
And what
to help you.
resources the mayors can
Yeah.
tap into at
Exactly.
state to fill in for some of those staff
Exactly.
roles. What questions do you have for the ambassador? Yes,
I think I
please.
should take one, because then
Okay.
I really got to run.
You got
That's
it.
my
I'll
plan.
try to make it a good one. Thanks. I'm Erin Mendenhall, Salt Lake City Mayor. Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is there. We're working on Olympics in 2030 or 34. There's a lot of international relationship that comes through the city. But our sister cities, of which we have about a dozen, Matsumoto is our longest standing one, feels like a totally underutilized resource. I couldn't raise my hand and say that I have someone in that position. I feel like we do our best to accommodate their interests, but we do almost nothing to gain from the sister city potential that exists there. Is there some resources in your work and in your team that we could look at for how do we, with limited resources, get more out of those opportunities?
I can tell you a little bit from my experience that I would think about what issues are most important to you in your city, whatever they are, and see if any of your sister cities are facing similar issues, and then potentially just build a program on that is focused on solving a problem that you mutually have, And that way get your specialists involved and basically get your specialists talking to each other about whatever it might be. And I think that enriches the relationship. It doesn't have to cost anything really if you do it through Zoom. It might cost a little if you want to, travel there and see the infrastructure or the whatnot, whatever it is. But that's one way I think that you can use a sister city relationship to help your own city. So that's one suggestion that I have. And we can just have a conversation about other potential ideas. And in general, if you want to engage internationally and you don't have the resources, let's have a conversation about it, because there are a variety of workarounds that we might be able to think about in terms of who you can gather in your city to give this work to, whether it's a university or a World Affairs Council, or you can create an advisory group, or you have, I'm sure that international stuff is happening everywhere, and so it's really sometimes a matter of just marshaling it and then, and setting an agenda. That's one way you can start anyway. And I'm so sorry I have to go. I would like to be here for hours, but I'm going to miss my
Quite all
plane.
right. Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Ambassador. So I think we're going to move along in our agenda, and we will work Mayor Hancock in to talk about what I know we all want to hear about, the City Summit in the Mayor of the Americas. But next we're going to hear from Des Moines Mayor Frank County, who's our next speaker, and he serves as the global president of ICLEI for local government sustainability. And so Mayor County has been a dedicated leader calling for increased multilateral cooperation that ensures that our governments are armed with resources to support what it will take to stem the worst effects of climate change. And he most recently represented us at the United Nations COP27, a global climate conference in Egypt. And he serves on multiple climate panels along with other climate experts. So with that, Mayor County, you want to give us your update?
Thank you, Mayor. As I sit and I look out and I look at a table in a room full of mayors and local government people, I might quickly diverge from what we're talking about right now. I've got to tell you, as a mayor and working on climate, and I look at Elizabeth Couts over here and remembering in 2009 when we went to Copenhagen. And we all had great expectations about what was going to happen and what the outcome there was going to be. I mean, there were hundreds of thousands of protesters out in the street, not against it, but we need to move faster. We need to move more intelligently. We have to work on biodiversity. We have to work on the whole variety of different issues, and we have to do it now. And you know what happened? Nothing. Copenhagen was over. Nothing happened. And so our expectations, were dimmed a little bit. I, for whatever reason, our former North American president of Intl, Antonio Virgosa, was termed out in 2012. And I had been a delegate to that Copenhagen and subsequent COPs. And he said, you've been a delegate, but I'm, the chair, and we have this global executive committee. Would you go? And so I did. And I said, where's it, in L.A. or San Francisco or where? And he said, Seoul. I said, Seoul? So I got on a plane. I went to Seoul to Korea. And here I am with about 25 mayors from around the world. And we get a report from this climate group who is talking about this stuff, and they said, here we are, 2012. He's going to be termed out, so that's why I'm going in place of him. And they said, we want local government input on this deal. They're going to put together, the Kyoto Protocol runs out the end of 2012. And so they're going to create a new protocol. And we want local government input. So when the draft committee at the UN rolls out this new protocol and draft thereof, I want you to review it. We need the local government input. And unless anybody has any questions, we're going to move on to food and water. And so I put up my hand. There are crickets. Nobody would say anything. I put up my hand, and I said, "Excuse me." They said, "Yes, Mayor." I said, "When is this draft going to come out?" They said, "Well, we think Paris is probably the next opportunity, and so that would be 2015." And I said, "And the draft would come out when?" I said, "Well, first or second quarter of 2015. Unless anybody has any more questions, we're going to move on to food and water." And crickets again. I said, "Are you kidding me?" I said, "We're going to wait to 2015 to see if we can have local government input?" And I look at all the mayors around this table. We have to open up our mouths now. And when there are issues and things that are happening in your city that you see, we need to have your input. We need to exchange ideas, and that's what I was looking for. And I said, we have to start today. We can't wait till 2015. I sit down. And so all of a sudden, they said, we're going to move on to food and water. And unless anybody has anything else. Again, crickets. And of course I said, I think we have people in this room that can influence it and no heads of government. I know the mayor over here, Mayor of Paris. I'll bet he knows the head of government. I'm looking over here. There's the mayor of London. I'll bet he does too. I'm looking over here. I said, there's the mayor of Copenhagen. I know she knows the head of government. The mayor of Rio. Bet he does too. We have to start today. Well, the mayor of Helsinki finally stood up and said, I'm with him. Pretty soon the whole room was with me. Now I want to tell you the outcome of that was that at that Paris Agreement and working those 2.5, 3 years up to that event, we got nearly 500 mayors that showed up that had worked all across the world. And we had U.S. mayors then in force with our voices. And it's our voices from the local government level that lets people know this is where things happen. We're the implementers of your solutions. We're the ones that see it every single day. You can go dream and anticipate about what should happen, but we need to have it happen. And we all need to work together. Multi-level government working together is what's going to cause and make solutions happen. Not just intentional conversation. We need action, and we need action now on a lot of levels, but certainly in climate change. And that's what our COP27 was about. It was about local government involvement. I've got to tell you, I was there for 2 weeks, and as was Mayor Couts and some of our other mayors, and we as the U.S. Conference of Mayors were loud. I also represented ICLEI as their global president, and they have 2,500 active members and another 500 that use their software and implement, and so 3,000 cities from that group, 1,400 from our U.S. Conference of Mayors, and we had a loud voice. But I've got to tell you, I was not all that excited about the outcomes from there. A lot of intentional conversation again, but we have to let our voices be heard. We have to reach out from this country to let our government at the national level, our state governments know we're all in this together. We have to work on solutions. We have to be there. Now, I will say that they did acknowledge reparations, certain areas of the world that had no or very little input into the climate situation that we have. Indigenous people in South America, Global South, in Africa, other areas of the world that are suffering. They acknowledged that and said, yep, we need to do something. We need to work on it. And I'm not sure where the money's going to come from, but at least it was acknowledged. But again, it's going to be those local government voices as we talk to our citizens every single day, and we understand their needs, their dreams, their wants for life today, in their lifetime, and generations. And as the indigenous Native Americans that we have learned, 7 generations out. We've got to plan at least that far ahead. And we hope that's what these cops are about. But I've got to tell you, as I look around this table, it's our local government voices that need to be heard, that let other leaders at other levels of government, at your states, at your national level, at the international level, we need to work together, be together, because we're all in this, and the outcomes are going to be felt globally.
Thank you,
So I'll
Mayor.
stop there.
Well, I appreciate that. We appreciate your urgency and certainly how you represent us in those conversations. I know that mayors around the table have made various commitments. I know we have to the Paris Climate Accords and other pretty ambitious goals just in our cities. And I know when we add them up, it makes for a lot of work towards how we will fight climate change in America. So all the feedback that you can give us and the more that we can do at the conference, we're looking forward to hearing it at the committee. I also want to make sure we have some time to give the mayor some questions, but I wanted to acknowledge Denver's mayor, Michael Hancock. You heard the ambassador refer to an exciting summit that he will be hosting in Denver. So we wanted to get a rundown about that. And then why don't we join that question and answer session with that of Mayor Hancock.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and to all of you, hello and good afternoon. I'll be very brief because I am chairing a committee next door, so I got to get back. But I wanted to follow up Ambassador's comments about the city's Summit of the Americas. That's going to be taking place in Denver this year, April 24th through the 28th. We're expecting about 20,000 people. This is the convening of mayors within the Western Hemisphere. Mr. Ambassador, good to see you. But the expectation is that American mayors will show up as well, engage with mayors from around the hemisphere, and have continuation of deep conversations around sustainability, safety, and crime, hunger, housing, immigration, the issues that we deal with every day, transportation, infrastructure funding, so on and so forth. I was in Los Angeles for the Summit of the Americas, and they had a separate section for mayors. I was blown away by the commonality of our issues and concerns with mayors in Guatemala, Colombia, Venezuela, El Salvador, and the richness of our conversations and how we can work on issues like gangs and sustainability. And so I wanted to come by, Madam Chair, and again, thank you, and extend a personal invitation. It will be very important to all of us that American mayors are well represented in these conversations. I get calls every day from mayors from around the hemisphere about making sure they're on the list to be invited. Canada, Mexico, and Venezuela, and Colombia. But as importantly, I want the American mayors there. So look for the invitation to come to your offices to be there and to make sure we're represented in Denver along with the other mayors from around the Western Hemisphere. City Summit of the Americas, April 24th through the 28th.
Thank you.
Denver,
Thank
Colorado.
you, Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. So I want to turn to the mayors now to see if there are any questions for Mayor County about his COP27 presentation. Mayor, I'll start. Is there any specific action that we can take from the committee or the conference to help you in the work that you're doing? Okay, Mayor Couch as well.
The actions I think that we can take as mayors and in our committees is to look at our opportunities, let people know, what the risks are and why we need to acknowledge them, whether it's the risks that occur in Miami or New Orleans or Washington, D.C., or Des Moines, Iowa. I mean, a lot of people think, well, you're in the middle of the country, you don't have any risks. What the heck's the problem over there? Well, I got to tell you, we have seen 3 separate derecho events. And I got to tell you, about 3 years ago, I didn't know what a derecho was. That we saw hurricane force winds up to level 4 hurricane, so 130, 40 mile an hour winds coming across Iowa. And then in the damage that occurs around that. And then we had on June 30th, 2018, we got 10 inches of rain in about 3.5, 4 hours. Who thought that would happen in Des Moines, Iowa? I mean, come on. But what we need to do is let people know that these things do happen. Let's share our experiences. Let's share our risks. Let's come together, put together a plan, put together a common voice to let those at those higher levels of government know that we need help, we need action, we need cooperation, and we need to work together starting now. We've got a couple of existential threats. Climate change is certainly one, and we've got our mayor's group that we occasionally talk in the international group, where we have mayors working against nuclear weapons. So it's Mayors for Peace. And boy, I tell you, there's an issue as we look what's happening in the Ukraine and whatever. They need to hear our voices. We need to figure out what we can say, because if we don't get on top of some of this stuff, it could be game over.
Got it, Mayor. Mayor Kraus?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, COP13 in Denmark was my first COP, and it was under my presidency. And it was also where we as mayors of the U.S. Conference of Mayors in 2005 signed a climate agreement because President Bush did not sign the Kyoto Protocol. But we did, and I took that seriously, and we adopted a sustainability plan for Burnsville. So I give that as a background. So I'd like to add to Mayor County's conversation, because what I saw and have experienced in 5 COPs was that mayors were making a difference. We came together and decided that there are things that we can do. Mayor Bowser talked about her plans in her city. You see, if we all take our plans and we all make a difference, we can turn the tide. We can't continue to wait for the federal governments or these national government to make up their mind, because they can't. Even at this last COP, they did agree that there should be loss and damages for those countries and islands who were the least polluters, but are suffering a great deal. But they didn't agree on how it's going to be funded. They still can't agree on what it is that we need to agree on in terms of the planet's heating. But we mayors can't listen to that rhetoric and say we have to wait for them. We know what to do. Each and every one of us in our cities care about the environment, care about what this planet is going to be for our children and grandchildren. And so we are called to make a difference. So I have seen, because what mayors have done is leveraged our resources with our business community. When we were in Glasgow, we had more billionaires sitting around the mayor's table. Right, Frank? Because they got on board. We had Bezos at the table. We had Gates. Bloomberg invited all of these folks and others. So together with our business community, we can do that. I can tell you that working with our business partners, we can reduce our carbon footprint. I work with our power plant in Burnsville. And in 2015, April 13th, I stood there with the president of Xcel Energy and saw the last coal train pull into that plant. So, mayors, we can make a difference. Maybe small, in that we're doing it a little at a time. But the thing is, all of that raises the capacity if all of us do it together, because I've seen from Denmark to Paris, and then to Glasgow, and then to Sharm el-Sheikh, mayors and businesses are making a difference. Let's not wait for the government, the national governments, to come to their senses and make a decision. They can't seem to do that. And every COP that I've gone to, as Frank reported, they can't make up their minds because there's so much there. But we know what to do.
Well, let me make one suggestion, because as you were talking, Mayor, I was thinking about the new office at State and how important it is that as they support us, and it looks like, I think the next thing that we need to ask them to do is think about how they can support cities and mayors that just don't have an international infrastructure, and how some staff within those offices can be helpful. But I'm thinking they also need local examples, that as they're setting up these meetings and missions and the different summits, all of the work that we're doing around the table is helpful to them in showing what's happening at the local level and how it is contributing to the American approach to fighting climate change. So as I'm thinking, I know we do a lot of collecting best practices with the conference, and I think the State Department having that in their arsenal is also important.
So the one thing is, what they can do is also build a website.
Yep.
Because we're building a website for my community, so all of our businesses can record what they're doing, so we can really have an understanding of what's happening in our community and all the different critical areas. Because I can tell you this, when I was president, we went to the EU and formed a relationship with the mayors of the countries of the EU.
Yes.
On all of this, and we signed the agreement in Oklahoma City in 2010, and then I went back to the EU and signed it there. But we have to renew that agreement, and they've changed a great deal. So I think with this office, there's a lot that we mayors can do. And Madam Chair, I think with your influence, we can really do that.
All right. I like that that recommendation, and staff will tell me how much time we have. 15 minutes. Okay, good. We're on time. So now let me turn to our final speaker, and he has traveled from Nuremberg, Germany to be with us, and he is Mayor Markus Koenig, and he has served as mayor since 2020, and he is committed to the issues, as we have been discussing, of climate protection, urban development, sustainability, human rights, and equality, among other things. Nuremberg is the second largest city in the German state of Bavaria. It is famous for its Christmas market, which is said to be one of the oldest in the world. And Mayor Koenig also recently attended COP27, and he will share his experience with us from a European perspective. And at the conclusion of his remarks, we'll have time for questions, and perhaps the ambassadors would like to offer a few remarks. Mayor.
Ja, sehr geehrte Damen und Herren, ich darf auf Deutsch sprechen und ich werde übersetzt. Sehr geehrte Frau Botschafterin Pierce.
Ladies and gentlemen, I will be giving my remarks in German and will be interpreted. Madam Ambassador, Madam Mayor.
Es ist mir eine große Ehre, meine sehr geehrten Damen und Herren. Ich darf natürlich heute nicht nur als Oberbürgermeister von Nürnberg zu Ihnen sprechen, sondern auch als Mitglied und im Vorstand des Deutschen Städtetags.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's a great honor for me to be here today. I am speaking to you not only as the mayor of Nuremberg, but also on behalf of the German Association of Cities.
Und es ist wirklich eine Ehre, dass wir mit unseren amerikanischen Freunden heute hier zusammen sind und auch ein Stück weit die Welt, und das haben wir heute gehört, verändern können.
It is a great honor for me to be here together with you, with our American friends, in order to shape the world together, as we have already heard today, to change the world.
Ja, liebe Freunde, wir Städte wissen doch am besten, dass es nur dann erfolgreich ist, wenn wir gut zusammenarbeiten. Und die deutsch-amerikanische Freundschaft spielt hier eine ganz besondere Rolle.
My friends, we cities know that we are only successful if we work together, and the German and American friendships plays a very special role.
Und so wichtig ist die Städtediplomatie, die wir anführen, weil nur dann können wir an dieser Stelle was verändern. Und die Unterstützung der deutschen Bundesregierung haben wir auch gesehen mit der amerikanischen Bürgermeisterkonferenz, dass wir das beides unterstützen.
The cooperation between cities is so important here, and we see that it works the best when we're supported by the German government and by the American government. And the German and American Mayors Conference was very important for this.
Und wir haben natürlich auch im Rahmen des Urban Diplomacy Exchange auch hier eine gute Zusammenarbeit, die wir auch fortsetzen wollen. Und dieser Austausch ist unglaublich wichtig.
Within the framework of the Urban Diplomacy Exchange, we have great cooperation, and we will continue this important exchange.
Alle Bürgermeister, die heute schon gesprochen haben, haben das wiederholend gesagt. Wir Städte und wir Bürgermeister sind an erster Front, wenn es darum geht, mit globalen Herausforderungen auch zurechtzukommen. Und da geht es um
All the mayors that spoke before me today already mentioned that the cities are at the forefront when it comes to dealing with global challenges such as
das Klimawandel,
climate change,
Biodiversitätsverlust,
loss of biodiversity,
steigende Energiepreise und Inflation.
rising energy prices and inflation.
Und alle diese Maßnahmen, alle diese Krisen, die landen bei uns auf dem Tisch und wir müssen sie lösen, weil das sind die Auswirkungen, die die Menschen spüren.
All of these crises come to our doorstep, and we have to deal with them because people are affected by the impacts.
Und besonders bei uns ist der Krieg natürlich in der Ukraine, der bedroht für uns die Stabilität der globalen Weltordnung und die Folgen dieses Krieges, die spüren wir vor und in unseren Städten vor unserer Haustür.
Especially for us, the war in the Ukraine is a great danger to stability, and it is threatening the global order. And the consequences of this war are being felt at our global level and the local level at our cities.
Und deshalb müssen die Städte als echte Partner auf Augenhöhe auch mit am Tisch sitzen und die städtische Perspektive muss unbedingt berücksichtigt werden. Wenn Lösungen auch für die globalen Herausforderungen erarbeitet werden, wir müssen dabei sein.
This is why cities need to be partners at the table truly at eye level. The urban perspective must be taken into account when developing solutions to these challenges.
Und lieber Freund Franklin County, das ist gut, dass du aufgesprungen bist, weil die Zeit, die drängt, besonders bei der Klimafrage.
And my dear friend Mayor Cowley, it's great that you jumped up and shouted out because time is pressing, especially when it comes to the climate change issue.
Wir können nicht auf nationale Regierungen warten, bis sie sich einigen, sondern wir können schneller handeln wie jede staatliche Regierung.
We cannot wait for the national governments to come to an agreement because we can come to agreements much quicker than they can, and we can act.
Und die Städtediplomatie kann die internationalen Anstrengungen nicht nur unterstützen. Ich glaube, vielmehr gehen die Städte bei wichtigen Themen wie dem Klimawandel voran.
City diplomacy can not only support international efforts. I believe that the cities are really leading the way on important subjects.
Und deshalb ist es so wichtig, dass wir hinarbeiten auf eine Mehrebenen-Governance, bei der alle Level, inklusive die Kommunen, an den Tisch der Entscheidung sitzen.
And that is why it's so important that we work toward a multi-level governance where all the levels, including the municipalities, have a seat at the table.
Und größere Ambitionen und schnelleres Handeln sind möglich, wenn Städte, Staaten und Regionen zusammenarbeiten. Und dies, finde ich, hat die Weltklimakonferenz in Sharm el-Sheikh, die COP27, gezeigt.
Greater ambition and rapid action are possible when cities, states, and regions work together. I believe that this was shown by the Global Climate Conference in Sharm el-Sheikh.
Und das erste Ministertreffen für Urbanisierung und Klima unter der Einbeziehung der Städte war ein wichtiger Schritt, auch in die richtige Richtung einer Mehrebenen-Governance.
The first ministerial meeting on urbanization and climate that brought the cities on board was an important step towards multi-level governance.
Und dies kann, finde ich, auch als ein Grundstein für eine offizielle Anerkennung der Städte im Rahmen der Weltklimagipfel dienen.
I believe that this can serve as a cornerstone for official recognition of cities in the context of global climate summits.
Aber es gibt natürlich noch Luft nach oben. Unerfüllt bleibt die Erwartung der deutschen Kommunen, verbindlich in den Prozess der Klimakonferenzen eingebunden zu werden. Und Sie hingegen, liebe Kolleginnen und Kollegen, der offizielle US-Klimadelegation, Sie haben es schon mal geschafft, an diesem Tisch zu sitzen. In Deutschland sind wir da noch ein bisschen hinterher, aber ich bin mir sicher, wir werden auch das in Deutschland schaffen, dass wir an diesem Tisch sitzen.
There is still room for improvement, though. You, my dear colleagues, have already been part of official U.S. climate delegations. In Germany, unfortunately, we have not been able to do so this far, but we hope that it will happen in the future.
Ich glaube, darüber hinaus müssen Städte strukturiert und substanziell in den Diskurs über internationale Entwicklungen eingebunden werden. Städte wollen gestalten und sie haben Erfahrungen und Wissen. Und sie sind am nächsten dran an den Menschen. Die Maßnahmen haben häufig eben die Auswirkungen auf das Leben der Menschen, die bei uns leben.
Cities need to be involved in a structured and substantive way on the discourse on international developments. Cities want to shape. They have the experience and knowledge, and they're closest to our people. Measures often impact the people on the local level.
Und ich glaube auch, den Urban 7-Prozess im Rahmen der deutschen G7-Präsidentschaft 22 hat gezeigt, dass wir Städte erreichen können, wenn wir zusammenarbeiten. Und wir haben eine Urban 7-Gruppe mit Städtenetzwerken und ihren Mitgliedern aus allen G7-Staaten gebildet. Und das ist der Schlüssel für den Erfolg, den wir jetzt auch umsetzen müssen.
I believe that the Urban 7 process under Germany's 2022 G7 presidency showed what we cities can achieve when we work together. We formed an Urban 7 group with city networks and their members from all G7 countries. The key to the success was to involve existing networks, and we want to continue this process.
Also, liebe Freunde, lasst uns gemeinsam zusammenarbeiten. Es ist so wichtig, wir haben nur eine Welt und für diese Welt müssen wir gemeinsam kämpfen. Sie hat es verdient und wir sind die Verteidiger vor Ort für unsere Demokratie.
My dear friends, we must fight together. We only have one world. It is one world that we need to fight for together. It deserves us. And we are the ones who are fighting for democracy.
Ganz herzlichen Dank für die Aufmerksamkeit.
Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you so much for joining us and for sharing their perspective from Germany. We have a couple of minutes left for questions, and before I turn to your questions, I wanted to see if Ambassador Pierce or Montezuma wanted to add anything for the discussion.
Thank you. I just want to say that there are no borders in issues that affect localities, and mainly if you have such a long border as we have in Mexico and the United States. So we are very eager to contribute and participate in this discussion to fight against all these problems that local governments have in both sides of border.
Thank you, Ambassador. Ambassador?
Well, thank you very much, Madam Chair. Thanks for having us. Thank you, everybody. And I just wanted to salute you for everything you do to cooperate with embassies in DC. I think, as we heard, mayors are right at the cutting edge, not just of big international issues, but also of public policy, homelessness, crime. There's a lot we would love to learn from you. You have a slightly different structure than we have in the UK. Nevertheless, some of the problems, as Ambassador Esteban said, are the same. Crime, homelessness. You were right there with direct democracy. You're the closest to citizens. What you do collectively affects the lives of millions of ordinary citizens. So there's a lot we can work on together. I'm going to try and get Britain to have an equivalent of Ambassador Hashigian, but whether we do or not, promise you, Madam Chair, that we'd love to work with you and your colleagues.
Thank you, Ambassador, and thank you for your comments. And I think we've learned a lot. I know there are a couple of takeaways. First, to learn more about the city's conference that will be hosted in Denver. The ambassador mentioned something that we can sign on to as mayors in support of democracy, and I would like to make sure we get that out to this committee and perhaps organize some efforts among mayors to be very supportive of those efforts, and continue to call on Mayor County, who's our representative, on these issues with some specific feedback, or work with our new ambassador on ways that she can compile or have her staff compile what we're doing to fight climate change, to be supportive of our work at the meetings that Mayor County attends for us. Is there anything else that anyone wants to put on the agenda?
I've got
Yes,
one
Mayor?
thing.
Yes, sir.
I've got to tell you, as I look at all the mayors around the table, I think that we all ought to get the kind of respect that Mayor Koenig has. We ought to be called Lord Mayors.
So with that, Mayor Holt, anything else? I think we're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Okay.